I'm here with the man Konrad from the Sun Gods. Thanks for taking the time, man. Spending coming along to my little, not quite dungeon, but just spare bedroom.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's not dungeony. It's got some lovely sort of 1970s, 1980s era wallpaper with some delightful choreo designs. I'm quite down with that vibe, man. It's cool.
Yeah, it's I think this is a 50s or 60s house.
Yeah.
It's quite a random story. We had this guy on the street knock on our door, and he's like, "Oh, we want to use your house for like a filming set," and I'm like, "Okay, what for?" He's like, "Oh, because you got like, because we're renting. This isn't my house. I wish it was my house, but we got like the front area with like all the grass and everything. It's like, oh, we have some kids running up to the front door and all this." And I'm like, "Okay, like, and here you can get like maybe $1,000 something commission." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool." Well, let me know. And then that was it. Never heard from him again. So that opportunity's gone. No money.
Yeah. And did someone burgle your house incidentally the next week?
Luckily, no. He didn't. He didn't come in the house.
Just show me inside. I just want to see where the sort of the entry points might be, and maybe some security weaknesses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, luckily we do have an alarm in this house, which is good.
That's good.
Yeah, the time of like the floods. The hurricane that we had in the floods. There was because you're around this area, right?
You're not too far away.
Yeah, like there's a bit of like looting going on. So yeah, we were like, let's get that content insurance. Could be a good idea. And then just sort of like maybe put the alarm on a bit more, and yeah, but we've luckily been all right. But in the beginning, I was like, I don't know. Like, yeah, if someone looks at the house and be like, but I do work from home a bit, so
Oh, that always helps.
yeah, it's all right. But anyway, man, the Sun Gods. You guys been going since 2015?
Yeah, well, James, the drummer, and I have been playing together since, that's a very long time ago by the sounds of things. Now, probably 2007 off and on. We were in a band called Afrotone, which then became a band called Drivetown. And almost could have made it if we'd had
Drivetown. That's with John.
John.
It is a small world. He was my guitar teacher.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
There you go, with John. Yeah, and almost could have made it if we'd had our shit together more, kind of a band. Probably weren't as good as we thought we were, and weren't as organised as we needed to be.
Right.
So,
define having your shit together more. Does that mean just like being more like aware of like the business part, or like submitting your stuff to labels, or
definitely that. But I think probably being aware of probably our image, we had no fucking idea. Also, James and I were discussing a while ago, writing songs as a two-piece, granted, is a lot easier, but we wasted so much a metric fuck ton of time recording and re-recording and playing and practicing like the same song over and over and over and over and over again. When I think we've calculated in the space of probably 3 or 4 years when we were playing in those previous bands, I reckon. In the space of 3 or 4 months, we would have written more songs than we'd written in 3 or 4 years with the other band, just because we're far more invested in the process of making songs, getting an idea down, and then moving on than we were on perfecting sort of 3/4 okay ideas. And so, yeah, I think if we'd had a little bit more of a clue as to how to improve, we probably could have done more. But live and learn, hey?
yeah, because just the two of you, because it's from what I've heard, like the recent stuff as well. It's quite like the difference like from like the 2015, 2016 recordings to now. It's definitely very different. Sonically, it's very to my ears, it's very different.
Yeah, well, I think because the songs that I think when we recorded an EP in 2015 or whenever it was, or 2016, that we really just did it for our own enjoyment. We'd had because the plan was that we were going to go overseas and go play in a band in the UK, but I couldn't get a visa because I'd already used my sort of working holiday one playing cricket over there when I was younger. And so I couldn't get a visa to go. So James went, and our ideas we had all these sort of half-finished songs. We're like, a while later, we sort of got together and like, oh, have you still got these song ideas? And I said, yeah, do you know, we should finish them off somewhere somehow. And so we ended up recording them in Melbourne, where I was living at the time, with at a studio there, and that was sort of it, really. So that was the start of us as a band, and we sort of figured as a two-piece, we were like, oh, we could make this work somehow, but we didn't know how at that point. There were songs that were written probably for a 3 or a 4-piece band, but it just was me recording all the guitar and the bass parts and singing, and him playing the drums. But when we got together a little while after that, I think we probably the songs and stuff, we were like broadly like they were okay, and we kind of got them down. We're like, that was fun. Let's get together and write some more. And in the meantime, I'd sort of been playing around, and I'd because I'd been living in South Korea and I hadn't been musically active in terms of writing original stuff. I started writing again and had figured out how to write songs. And I was like, if we're going to play as a two-piece, and I'd heard Royal Blood by that stage and obviously had known who the White Stripes were. And I was like, surely if I can piss around with octave pedals and something, I can figure out a way to do this that sounds big and fun and you don't miss any other band members. And so I had kind of figured that out, and we got together and wrote some more songs, and stuff started coming together really quickly. And just the way that I had to tune the guitar in order to make it work sort of lent itself towards playing really heavy music and playing really sort of big chunky riffs, because the way that I tuned it was almost like a lot of the strings are in the same tuning.
Okay.
Which it's
unique. Yeah.
It's out of it just to make it work. And so that really lent itself to just big chunky chords, and everything sort of progressed from there. And so the music that we were writing was becoming heavier just because of that. And I think we started to forge a little bit more of a sound. But so the sort of second EP that we recorded, I think certainly sounds a lot more like the stuff that we're writing now and that we've written recently.
I kind of get like Royal Blood mastered on, and like a bit of like She Had, and even like Eagles of Death Metal.
Yeah,
I get that kind of vibe.
Uh-huh.
Like groove rock, like I don't know. That's groove rock, I suppose. I get that kind of vibe, and then like that voice, it's like, it definitely reminds me of like She Had to me. But maybe it's just because it's Kiwi.
Yeah, well, the accent probably makes a difference. I think John Toogood does balance the thing of sounding like he's got a New Zealand accent without sounding really thuck with it. So maybe if you're hearing that, I try and do the same thing because I feel as though it feels and sounds more authentic in my opinion. So
of course, like nothing worse than there was a phase, I'm pretty sure, like when I was younger, like if I'd hear a New Zealand band and we want to sound American, I'm happy that people don't do that anymore.
Yeah. So
like vocalists trying to do that whole American, like, I don't know, pop punk or like whatever the genre was, try and get that sort of, or even in hip hop, like I remember that distinctively, like Day Almo and like a few of those guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're doing that, I feel like it sounds like you're doing an imitation of somebody else, which is fine if you want.
If that's
what you want to do, to be an imitation of someone else and to sound exactly like somebody else sounds. And I mean, there's only so much scope if you're sitting within broadly some kind of genre confines to be creative and to sound original anyway. So why you would take steps to sound more like somebody else with, I guess, vocals, which are probably the most distinctive and unique part of any music. Why you would try and sound more like somebody else than like you, I don't quite understand. But I don't know, each to their own.
Yeah. Have you always been a singer and a guitarist, or did you start with singing or playing guitar first, or what was the first sort of instrument you were doing?
Oh, it's always been in the blood, hey, because my parents met when they were in a band. Or I think, I don't know exactly how they met, but I think Dad was in a band and Mum met him through that and ended up being in the band. And even when I was a kid, Dad used to have band practices in the garage.
Yeah.
And when I was little, I always wanted to be a drummer because sometimes I'd have band practice and I'd do it over a few days and the drummer would leave his kit there. And I just absolutely loved when I was like 3 years old going down and just bashing the living crap out of it. And I still haven't forgiven my parents to never buy me a drum kit because I begged for one when I was a kid. I so badly wanted a drum kit but never got one.
I can probably understand why.
Yeah, look, as a parent now, funny story. We actually got one for my little boy who was never actually that enamored with the drums in the first place. But there was like
dad on the drums.
Yeah, and it was like a half-size drum kit, and I was like, "This is actually a good drum kit. I can vicariously live through my son the dreams that I never was able to live through my own childhood."
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and then he didn't really take to it. My nieces absolutely did though, and they came over one day and they were just like, "This is the greatest thing ever." And after sort of about an hour, I was like, "Okay, get that thing out of my house."
I understand my parents now.
Exactly, yeah. And I can remember, but the stitch up was, I can still remember two of the best stitch up lines. Hey, my friend Corin, who lived a few houses down, Jeremy and Corin, actually brothers. Their mum was a music teacher, and they had a drum kit at their house. And I'd be like, "Mum, can I have a drum kit?" She'd say, "Why don't you just go play on their drum kit?" And I was like, that's not how it works. You can't just go over to someone else's house and do the things at their house and ignore the fact that they're that they are there. That's not really how it works. I can't have someone else's drum kit and pretend that it's my own. And my dad would be like, you know what you want to get? You want to get one of those really good drum kits. Will you buy one for me? No.
This is what you need to sound really good. This is really good
Oh,
quality.
one of these.
Should we
One
get-
of these electric ones. One of the electric drum kits.
yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. You gonna buy me one? No.
Why did you come up with the idea in the first place? Yeah.
Yeah, but and so in the meantime, Dad had always had his own little recording studio at home, and yeah, he had like guitars and bass guitars and stuff. So it was only a matter of time before I started picking up a guitar and doing what he did, which was playing the guitar and singing. Yeah, so that always came quite naturally, and because it was a thing that my family just did and always had done, it always felt like just a natural thing to do. I know a lot of people who don't or have never done it before, like when they first sort of cotton onto it or first see someone doing it, if it's not sort of instilled in them already, they're like, wow, that's like amazing and that's like magic. And I was like, oh, that's just a thing that people do, isn't it? Doesn't everyone do that?
Yeah, it's the music. Yeah, it's interesting with like I guess like original songwriters and what people end up doing, and it's like, oh, like your parents' musical, and then there's times like no, like for me, like my mum played the clarinet, classical music and that, and then that's kind of mum was like, we want you to do that, and I was like, no, if I don't want to fucking do that. So yeah, and then but I ended up playing like the saxophone for quite a long time, and then eventually I was like. I appreciate it now, but when I was younger, I did not because I was like, I want to be in like a rock band. That was like all I wanted to do. And then I started kind of picking it up myself. But yeah, when I started playing it, yeah, the folks weren't a bit like, why are you doing that? Yeah, it was quite interesting.
One thing I did notice is because I played the flute, I think, how old would I have been? For a couple of years when I think I was 12 or something. I don't really know what possessed me to do it. I thought it was an interesting instrument.
It was your idea.
Oh yeah, well, because I think at where was I? At Sacred Heart Intermediate at the time, and they're like, who wants to be in like the school sort of whatever band thing? I was like, I want to play an instrument. I want to learn how to do the music thing because everyone in my family does it. So, and I think I tried playing the guitar when I was like 5, and I hadn't got it. I was like, that's a bit hard for me. And so I started learning the flute. And after a few years, I was like, yeah, I want to play the guitar. But in the in between time, I didn't really realize the music theory that you pick up and the stuff that you learn is really, really useful later on.
Incredibly.
Because you start to figure out things like keys, and you start to figure out things like different timing and different tempos, and the idea of different intensities and different volumes and different the time signatures thing is really interesting because I find that I can count things quite intrinsically, but also add a number to it. So, for example, there's a song that you probably might have heard, "Fall in Line," which flicks between 5/4 and 4/4.
Yeah, I could kind of pick that out a little bit.
But it was quite interesting because James, the drummer, was like, "What the hell is going on here?" Like it was interesting. The bridge he really struggled with. The intro he just kind of like clicked into, and he was hitting it in 5/4 time and not even knowing that he was doing it. But then I was able to sort of explain. I was like, well, actually, instead of counting 4, you have to count 4 plus 1, so 5/4. And he's like, oh, so how do you do that? I was like, 1 2 3 4 1 1 2 3 4 1 1 2 3 4 1. So there's kind of like an extra beat in there. He's like, oh, how do you know that? I was like, I think it's because I learned the flute.
Who would have guessed? The flute paid off all these years
exactly.
later. Man.
Exactly.
Did you ever learn to beatbox on the flute?
No.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
No, that would have been a much cooler use of the flute than anything I ever used it for.
So cool. Yeah, that's funny with that. What was I gonna? Oh yeah, because that reminds me of in Royal Blood's Figure It Out, they have a 5/4 part, and I remember when I was in the band, in our cover band, and we played that, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, 'cause especially in the ending part, it was like dun 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 dun. I was like, this is weird. I'm like, I see. And then once I kind of got my head around it was fine. I was just so used to playing 4/4 just for a long time. Sometimes I've written a little bit of stuff in other time signatures, the 3/4 and a couple of things in 5/4, but if it happens, it happens. But I don't plan it. Sounds like you don't either. It's just sort of like, we're in unconventional timing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you pick it up and you hear songs that sound cool that you like, but you think there's something. I'm not talking about Tool because everything and there's some songs some Tool songs I try to count them and I just can't. I'm like, how do you even begin to count that? And the rhythms often don't make sense. Like you feel like you can jump back to the beginning of a bar or whatever, but sometimes with some Tool songs I don't even pick that up. But there's been a few bands where I feel like they do it relatively consistently, and I feel like it feels like it's natural to count it. And it's really interesting to sort of start picking apart why you like it and why that time signature sounds interesting, but also kind of accessible still. Because Deftones did I think I can't remember what the song was. Doomed User, I think it was a 5/4. So it's the 1 2 3 4 1 1 2 3 4 1, and yeah, I really like that as a time signature for whatever reason. There was another song by Biffy Clyro.
Yes. Yeah.
They do heaps of weirdo time signature stuff, but it's all delivered in almost like polished pop punk type energy. So I find them quite fascinating to listen to for that reason, because there's lots of hooks and lots of sort of major key sweetness, but with really odd time signatures and rhythmic changes and stuff.
I remember I was in a band with a guitarist who really liked them, and on his guitar, if I remember right, it was a Fender Strat, if I remember correctly, but he replaced his pickups with like, what were they called? Hot rods?
Hot Rails.
Hot Rails.
Yeah.
That's it. He did that because I remember listening to like the tone of it. I'm like, that's a Strat. And but this was a while ago. I remember being like, oh, and that's quite an interesting setup, and like, but I'm like, that's cool,
Yeah.
get your own thing out of it. But I never quite caught the I don't really have too much of an opinion on them. They're all right.
Yeah.
But I think the Deftones are interesting because there's times where I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds like pretty conventional timing, and then it's like, oh, it's really not. And then it goes all over the place until, like, obviously, it just kind of goes off on these massive tangents. I have a very funny memory of, I remember in high school, I got into that Anima album, and I really loved 46 and 2 and all that stuff, really into it. And I had a drummer friend at the time, and then he was like, oh, what are you listening to? And I'm like, oh, it's this band called Tool, that, like, it's got some pretty cool stuff, check it out. Within a day, he was hooked. And I would never fucking hear the end of it.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, bro, do you know how, like, amazing they are? I'm like, oh, what have I done?
Yeah, some people who get into them get really, really into them. I feel like they're one of those bands where you sort of you really get sucked into the sort of complexity of it in a lot of ways. I never did. I thought they were okay, and I kind of liked them, and that was as far as I went.
That was me. I was exactly like that. I was like, "This got cool songs. I'll add this into like my mix." Like, especially that Anima album I really clicked with, and then Lateralis and first album. Yeah, obviously they're kind of bigger songs, first album songs, Sober, Prison Sex, all that stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I was like, this is cool. But then I went to a Tool concert, and I was like, oh wow, like, all right, these people are like, it's like Tool is the only band that exists, which I found quite. I've never been around a fan base. Maybe there are other bands, like, or maybe Taylor Swift fans, but maybe a bit similar. Like, she is the only artist that exists.
Yeah.
Because that's quite interesting. I don't know, that's a weird comparison I've just drawn. Like, Tool fans, Taylor Swift fans. There some similarities?
I reckon there is. I reckon you're onto something there.
Yeah, there's a bit of like obsessiveness, like but I don't think Tool fans react the same. I watched a great video the other day of like these girls at the Taylor Swift concert, and they're like all like passing out as soon as she starts singing.
Yeah, no, I'd believe that. There is like a really, I could only speculate, but I think it's possibly got something to do with the fact she's gone all the way from like the Disney thing all the way to superstardom, and she's got some credibility because she still manages a lot of her own stuff and hasn't been sort of sucked into doing what other people have told her to do.
She re-recorded all of the material because of that record label issue she was having. I think it was like a few years ago, like, because they owned everything, like in the beginning, like her first 2 albums, or sorry, Swizzle fans, I don't know, I can't remember. But so she re-recorded them all, and then she's like, buy this music because this one's owned by me, even though it's the same songs. And then all the fans went out and bought that. Yeah, and I was like, wow.
Thank goodness, because she would have been struggling before that.
Oh yeah,
she would have go buy this version because she's I've only got 12 houses, 6 boats, and $46 bazillion. Please buy these versions. It would mean so much to me. I really need them. Really need those album sales because I haven't had enough already in my life.
Imagine just getting a fan base like that obsessive, but maintaining it it's quite impressive. I don't know if there's many. Because, like,
absolutely.
As an example, I guess, from let's say, like, even Justin Bieber, there was obsessiveness for maybe 5 years, and then it kind of slowly has. I mean, he's still massive, but it's not the same as it once was, obviously, because he's gotten older. The whole appeal is he's a young, pretty boy, all that kind of thing, and then it kind of happens with a lot of pop groups. But there's been a couple that have managed to maintain obsessive fan bases. Actually, I don't even know if they're obsessive fan bases. Like, Taylor Swift is kind of the only one I can think of where it's like, she'll play music and people just completely lose their, like, if they love her, they'll just lose her shit. They'll lose their shit. especially on a pop level, because pop artists, from what I understand, it's like a 5 to 7, if you're really lucky, 10 years, from what I can sort of see. You have that sort of period of time.
We go down a rabbit hole as to why it is, but
I do that a lot.
you don't. Well, I wonder if it's partly because of the audience that she has and how they feel they relate to her. I guess she's never really sold herself in the sort of a hypersexual way, which I think probably has a limited shelf life by definition. And if you do that when you're in your early 20s, that's one thing. But if you're starting to do it when you get into your 30s, it just starts to feel sad. And I don't say that because it should, just because it probably does for a younger or hipper audience. Whereas I think if you've maintained an image and maintained sort of a product that doesn't rely on that, then perhaps it's got a little bit more of a shelf life because you're doing more than appealing to people's most base instincts. Maybe that's why that people see themselves in you as a result of that, as opposed to seeing a cheap sexualized product.
Yeah, that's true. But the music isn't that incredible. I don't think so.
No, I don't. But is it ever really about the music?
No, it's not. And that's the whole thing about pop music. We talk about this a lot on the podcast. Like, music is like 20% probably of actually the product of the artist itself. It's everything else. So, but yeah,
I agree.
But so yeah, we've Liz was listening to a couple of you guys got a new song coming out soon, Cocaine Eyes.
Yeah, we do.
Is that it? Is that about cocaine?
It's not about cocaine specifically. It's about I don't know if you've ever had the experience of going out and being sober while everyone around you is absolutely monged.
Yes,
absolutely smashed.
I have. It is strange.
I wrote that after what I guess I consider a horror night out. It was for someone close to me's birthday, and I had come into the evening before dinner, and everyone else had been drinking during the day, and this is people sort of in their mid 30s to late 30s. And they had preloaded so hard that everyone was absolutely obliterated by the time we got to the restaurant. And I was just like, oh my God, just fucking kill me. Because I was sitting there stone cold sober with a few other people. Everyone else was basically slobbering over each other and just making an absolute menace of themselves in this like restaurant where people were just trying to have a nice time.
Yeah.
I was just like, fucking kill me. Oh, this sucks.
This is so embarrassing.
You guys are so embarrassing. You guys are being such dicks.
Yeah.
Fuck this.
Like a bunch of children, but you're all like in your mid 30s.
Exactly like that. And I kind of wrote it like that. And I think once you hear the lyrics, it's not particularly subtle. One of my friends, bless him, was like, girls go down there and guys come up here. And I was like, what the fuck? Is this primary school? Fuck. I am not enjoying this.
No, that's quite on like the, I guess, substance thing I find, because I played in bands for a while, and I played in a cover band for a few years, and I'd be around people on all sorts of kind of things, and I always found drunk people to be the worst every time. Like, you get people who are like a bit stoned and that, or maybe on like some pills, like, I mean, yeah, it depends, right? Someone starts a tangent or something, and they won't stop. But then, obviously, like with like so everyone's like pretty chill. But just drunk people, it's always drunk people.
Yeah,
just like slobbering everywhere, coming up to you, especially because you said you played in a cover band as well. You were saying before, people, it's great, but you played this song, and just like spitting, everyone's just
slobbering,
tripping over your pedal board and hitting a mic stand. Oh man, I copped a few mics to the teeth. That's
I've had the same experience
like,
of people.
Fuck, and it's always people like 40s, menaces, recent divorcees. Recent divorced women are the worst. I'll be real. Oh my god. Recent divorced women, like, you play my song.
I had 3 kids and I haven't been drinking in 3 years.
I got the babysitter. You know, it's just like, fuck me.
Yeah. I found.
Hey, well, people go through this shit. All right, but sometimes it's like, dial it back.
I wouldn't gender it, but I would definitely say that age group has a thing going on. It's like they don't do it very often, so when they go out and they go a bit hard. I think, I'm still 25.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I can still have 7 or 8 Jaeger bombs.
Yeah. But it's always for my few years of doing the cover band stuff, it was generally the older woman. I would generally find you get a few crazy sometimes younger people come in, but that's mainly what I found. Also going to like different kinds of gigs, like I mean we're kind of more like in the, I guess, the rock, alternative metal, maybe punk world. And then going to those gigs are always kind of like, I find, especially like punk gigs and that, depending on the punk band, but for me, like hardcore shows, people are quite respectful generally. You get a few critters who might, like moshing might get out of hand, but for me, I find people to be, someone falls down, pick them up, all that stuff, right? But like going like hip hop shows, I've been to a couple, and I'm like, man, people don't give a fuck about. They're just everyone's. It's very different. Like I've been to a couple of hip hop shows. I went to the Listen In music festival last year at Mount Smart, and like that was odd. It was like when there's violence, it's real violence. Like you're in like the mosh pit for like, I don't know, what was it, like Central C or like some of those grime or like rappers, and it's like if you end up in like a mosh pit, it might end up with a knife. It's like shit.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Like I've been around a couple of different music scenes, like audiences, and like the hip hop one was, I found kind of weird, and like, but the rock ones are just maybe people just drunk, like just beer, like beer, a bit of that. But I don't know. I find it like interesting. So it's like a anthropological study. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
People act different.
Yeah, I think possibly with the way, well, particularly where rock and metal is now, it's definitely an acquired taste. And I think if you go along to a rock music show, generally, or a metal show, it's because you're invested in it, and by extension, probably invested in the community. So if you're there, those are your people, and you probably feel like you have a connection and a responsibility to keeping them ensuring they're having a good time. Maybe that's part of it.
True. Yeah. Because I've been to like even really heavy Viator's Murder, deathcore kind of real heavy shows, and people are real nice.
Yeah.
They look scary, but they're very nice.
Yeah.
I just always find it but I guess it's like the outlet, right? So extreme, so intense, it kind of chills everybody out. I mean, so there's kind of something to that.
Yeah, I think they're possibly there because they identify with it, and by extension, maybe they identify with the people who are there as a result. Whereas maybe if you're going to something that's more popularly focused, you're going there for fun, to get monged and maybe cause some mischief.
Yeah.
Whereas the purpose to go there isn't necessarily because you're really heavily invested in the music and the community. It's because, I don't know, you want to go there and get drunk and be a menace, perhaps.
Yeah. Try and find some girls or whatever like that.
Oh,
I did that at one point. Go music, especially EDM, like drum and bass gigs and all that. Like it's fun, but it's sort of like there's only so many boom beats I can probably listen to now.
Yeah,
So everyone's using the same plugin.
I think it's the same beats. Like, has anyone heard this brand new drum and bass song? Here it comes.
Yeah.
You know what? The other one, the one that always gets me as well is Latin, and the reggaeton beat.
Yes. Oh my god, it's always the same.
Like, surely someone in Latin America at some stage is going to go, all right, guys,
We need to change it up.
can we change this up a little bit?
We need something different. We need something new. That's the same with reggae. I am not very good at drums, but I can do reggae drums. I remember I had a friend I used to sometimes jam with, and once I picked up the and then ding ding, and then like that, and I'm just like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
I cracked it. I made a reggae hit. Watch out, catch a fire. But I'm just like, I was like, look, reggae has its place. I totally get it, but I guess for me, I'm just like, once you get like a beat, I mean, you can say that about anything. I guess you can say about rock. I mean, if we all just did Phil Rudd's AC/DC beat, I mean, we can all be in a rock band, I suppose.
Yeah.
But at least I will say with rock and metal, there is a little bit more to it, in terms of, I guess, diversity of like what you can do sonically and techniques. Where it's like, I feel for me like with like reggae and even like some electronic music, you are especially drum and bass, because it's like the one drum beat, and then it's like you kind of are creative. You're bound by that one beat, which I guess you can be creative within that as well. But it's kind of like, I don't know. It's interesting.
it is. I'm always wondering if I could be like, that's a drum and bass song if it didn't have that drum beat.
It's a tempo, right? It's 160 something. I can't remember. It just has to be. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember.
Is it? Oh god.
But it has to. Yeah, it's like that one exact tempo, and like can't really. You kind of just confined within that. Yeah. Otherwise, if it slows down or something.
I'm outside my lane here talking about drum and bass.
About the EDM.
about the digital musics.
The digital music. Don't you guys? Do you guys still record on tape?
Yeah, definitely. Cassette tape.
So inconvenient.
I'd love to try it one day. When I say I'd love to try it one day, I don't actually think that I would, because someone has to then operate the tape machine.
Yeah, and then you just have to be like, it's a lot of money as well, just to be like, oh yeah, that tape's bad. We need a new tape reel.
Yeah.
replace. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I remember when I was doing some recordings, we used like we did this thing where you can like record through the tape machine. It's not like a tape plug-in, you record through the tape machine, but like to get the tape effect, I suppose. And then you record back into the disc, and you can get like that like kind of feeling. But it's not like you're like editing from. Oh man, editing on tape looked like such a bitch.
Yeah, with the razor blades and the
With
tape.
razor blades
Yeah.
and being like, oh man, what a faff. Oh, so much faff. Happy we don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I feel you.
Not that I ever did that, but I just remember when I was at sound school, like seeing that and just being like, "Fuck, no, I'm not doing that."
Yeah, don't want to have to do that.
No. So you guys recorded at Roundhead for the recent songs?
No, so the most recent EP that we did, we recorded beginning of last year. We did 3 out of the 4 songs we did at Roundhead with Scott Seabright.
Oh yeah. He used to be at York Street Studios as well when that was a thing.
He's R.I.P. He's a gun. He's a bloody amazing engineer, super quick, and we got a lot more done than we thought that we would, just because it was probably says a lot about the studios that I'd been in previously, but all the other studios I'd been in, you'd pick up half the things off the wall and be like, hey, does that channel work? No.
Oh.
And so half the equipment that was supposedly in there was in various states of disrepair. But when you walk into Roundhead, the really lovely thing is that everything works. And Scott, the engineer, Scott Seabright, was just super fast and super onto it.
Awesome.
So if we had an idea where he could be like, yep, and just like whip things up and make it happen. But okay, go record said idea. We'd be like, oh, you sure it's ready? Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Away we go.
Super quick. Great.
Yeah, so that was recorded in Roundhead. We were really happy with the results. The 4th song was a drum track that we had left over from our previous EP's recording, and I finished everything else in. Geez, I think the guitars and the bass we'd recorded as well during the previous EP sessions, and I added vocals and some other guitar parts to it.
Yep.
To make it an EP, because it didn't feel like it was an EP if it was only 3 songs. Yeah. And so the most recent ones, actually, I was sort of keen to talk to Scott again and be like, that worked well last time, let's do that again. But just so happened that James had been in contact with this guy called Nate Souter, who he lives in the Mount, and he does production and stuff down there. Has mostly been doing sort of more pop affiliated artists, but funnily enough, he was in this band called Take the Willing, who were sort of a hardcore punk kind of band years and years ago. Oh, I say years and years ago, this would have been probably 15 years ago. And James had just absolutely loved this album that they'd put out and had sort of vaguely kept in contact with what he was doing. And I think he also engineered and has been engineering Blind Spots stuff since their second album too.
Oh, cool.
And so James had got in contact with him, and I spend a lot of time in the Mount because that's where my wife's from, so we always go down and see the in-laws.
Mount's awesome.
And so I thought, well, it might actually, I was like, I could potentially work. And James was like, I'll just meet up with him and sound him out. And I was like, oh, you sure you don't want to go with Scott? Because it worked really well last time. He's like, bro, just meet him, see how it goes. And I met up with him and just, for whatever reason, really, really vibed with him. And I figured that James had moved down to Cambridge by that stage. And so he was actually closer to the Mount than he was to Auckland anyway. And I was going to be down in the Mountain quite a bit, just because I am. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, let's have a go, and had to talk to him about. And we, in terms of working with producers before, we'd never actually done the thing where we'd effectively had engineers who gave us a little bit of advice. Whereas this time we were like, oh, let's do the producer thing and see if they can squeeze a bit more out of our songs and what their sort of thoughts are. And so I talked to Nate, and he was really considered and really curious. And I think we just sort of saw eye to eye on a lot of stuff. And I think we were also at the point where we wanted someone who'd have like quite a fresh set of ears and quite a critical look at what they thought and what they could do to give us something a little bit different with their sort of slightly unique identity and pull out bits that they thought were unique and interesting.
Yeah,
And Nate,
it's really good for producers. I used to, when I was younger, I was like, don't tell me what the fuck to do. But then as time goes on, like, oh, this is important. Okay.
yeah,
It's like, or like, but then like, yeah, if you don't click and you don't take on board what they're saying, or you think it's just maybe they're, I don't know, is it genuine? Is disingenuine advice? But it's like, I don't know, if you pay someone a bit of money, it's like, well, yeah, they're there to make the best product or make the best thing they can. Like that's the whole point. So, but
yeah,
it did take me a little bit to learn that.
yeah. And well, with him, we just kind of, I got along with him like a house on fire, and James enjoyed his company too. So we sent him a whole, I would have been about a list of 15 demos, and he's like, I like these two, and they were not two that we had thought about like recording as a top priority. One of them had been like a long meandering intro, which then had a song attached to the end of it. It was about 5.5 minutes. He trimmed it down to about 3 minutes flat, got rid of the intro, and was like, I think this is really cool. Do that, do this, turn this up, turn this down, add a little bit more here, some more aggression there, and and turned it into sort of a really snappy, shorter song. That's Cocaine Eyes.
Cool. Wicked.
Yeah. And the other one was a song called Follow. Yeah. And that's a second song that we've got recorded and mixed in the can, and what we're going to do with that, we're not entirely sure yet when and how it'll be part of whatever our next release, full big releases, whether it's an EP or an album. James is really pushing for an album. So, yeah, we'll see if we can get that one over the line in the next 12 months. But, yeah, so that was a really cool process. We recorded the drums at Studio 11B, which is in the Mount.
Cool.
Actually, a really, really, really cool studio. I hadn't even known it was there until he pointed it out. He's like, yeah, it's because it was just across, literally almost just across the road from him, actually, where he lives. But when we went in there, the cool thing about it is the guys that own it, I think there's 2 or 3 of them. The guy who was doing the engineering for us on the day when we recorded the drums and the guitars, Evan, he's a drummer, and so he has, I think, like 5 or 6 kits in there and a whole bunch of different stuff. And whoever the dude is who owns the guitars, oh sweet Jesus, the amount of kit that's in there is just unreal. He would have in guitar amps alone, I reckon, easily over $100,000 worth of stuff just sitting in there.
Man,
like if you think
guitarist heaven.
Oh, it's quite overbearing, man, because he had like 30 guitars just in storage sitting at the back. Like, and he's like, anything you got, basically we have, like racks and drawers full of different kinds of pedals and stuff. And I sort of, when I went in there, I was like, I had a look at, and I sort of looked at everything. I was like, okay, well, there's too much here for me to have a go with. I was like, I think I need this, and this is what I want to do. I'm just not going to pay attention to, that triple rectifier and that orange, whatever the heck it is, and the freaking Fender Supersonic, all amps that I would really love to play through. Just not going to bother with that, because if I do, I'll be here for all day and not actually make a choice. But
the pursuit of tone.
Yeah,
you get stuck down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, but it just so ended up that because Nate had recorded there before, this guy Evan was a drummer and understood how to set up in the room to make it sound really good. So the drums sound perfect, massive. I don't think Nate said he hadn't used any samples or anything like that, and had done minimal beat matching. So what you hear when it's recorded is basically the drums as they were recorded, and they sound great. And ditto with the guitars, they just sound awesome as well. And all that was left from there was to do the vocals at Nate's sort of little home studio and mixing area, and that's what we did. And voila,
cool.
A couple more songs.
To me, it sounds quite like a more minimal approach to recording a little bit, like, because a lot of artists and like bands that they'll do a lot of they'll do like the samples and backing like keys and kind of a lot of other, or like drum samples. Did you guys do that? Do like individual hits of the drum kit?
Yeah,
and then slot those in.
Yeah, we did. The lucky,
okay.
Well, we didn't slot them in. But the lucky thing was that the songs, James reckoned they were probably two of the easier ones that we'd written. So he's like, I feel like I can hit the same spot in the drums every time that I need to. So we're not going to have to replace things with samples unless I really badly fuck it up, and he didn't at all. So
wow.
We didn't really need that, and we were kind of the way that we record and the way that we feel we play live, to get the spirit of it, we wanted it to sound as live as possible. So if there's the odd slight miss hit in there, just leave it, because it sounds a little bit more interesting. Yeah. So there was that, and then there were some other bits and bobs that I think I'd done some. So interestingly enough, the approach that we had was when we were recording demos, we do it one of two ways. Either we'll do the entire thing with an Apple iPhone sitting in a room and grab it as much as we can. If I've already got a vocal written, we'll do that at the same time, just so that the balance of everything's about right. Smash it even more than the Apple microphone does, so everything sounds relatively even. Like, right, that's it. That's the spirit of the song. However it goes from here is wherever it goes. But if everyone really likes it, I'll then program the drums and Logic and do the instruments and a vocal. If we've just recorded the instruments with the iPhone, then I'll just do a scratch vocal over top of that in GarageBand or whatever on my phone. And often that's enough. That's be like, okay, cool, we can actually record from here. Sometimes if I program everything, then we'll do like a more sort of demo where I'll start adding other guitar parts and key parts and stuff like that. And that will end up being very close to what we'll end up recording, yeah.
Oh, cool.
So yeah. I think there's, with Cocaine Eyes, there's a sort of a synthy part in there which sounds like these weird sort of ethereal vocal things going on, which was just something that I recorded on the computer using the keypad. I can't remember whether it was W or X. That's the note.
When you hit the W just right.
Yeah, that's the note, W, I believe. And John, funnily enough, who we played with in Drytown years ago, who's the bassist for Lost Vessels, who's very good at everything, really plays anything pretty well. We were like, James was keen to have, he's like, oh, can we add some piano in there? I feel like there could be some little piano bits going on. And John just added a whole bunch of stuff and was like, here you go, pick what you like. And you can actually hear, the one bit that we did keep was just to elevate the chorus. You can actually hear a little bit of piano going in there as well. Okay. So that was John. But yeah, the whole thing was fairly smooth sailing in terms of putting things together. I think technology allows you to do that now. It's
not as much faff.
Yeah,
It limits the faff.
It limits the faff if you know how to use it. It's just a tool like anything else, right? But you have to be able to incorporate it into the way that you do stuff. If you can do that effectively and you know what your process is, then it can cut down the amount of time that you spend on shit like drastically. The problem with it is that it's got unlimited options, and you can easily get sucked into a rabbit hole. Which is where having a producer is actually really good because they deal with that shit.
Yeah, like, that's my problem I've had as well. Trying to be careful of it and lose track of what you're really doing. It's like even like recording demos. Like, oh, my guitar doesn't sound good enough. It's like, who cares?
Yeah, it's a demo.
Yeah. But, I've been stuck down those rabbit holes quite a few times for sure. Doing all overlays and dubs, and then you're like, oh, could do this. Like,
yeah, I feel like if you have someone else who's invested in it, whose job is to be the invested, like, finicky person, then you can, like, if you feel that either you're getting like caught up in the detail, like, right, the detail's actually not my fucking problem. My thing here is to do the best performance that I can and listen to the person that's trying to get the best performance and be a little bit of a finicky pain in the ass as well at times, because that's what their job is, to do that and to make your song sound as good as possible. And your job, if you're in the studio recording the stuff, is just to put everything into the performance and make it as good as you can, and then just leave it to someone else. I much appreciate doing it that way now, having faffed over endless amounts of music and fiddled with mixes and guitar tracks and guitar tones and drum sounds and drum samples and shit like that. Just leave it to someone else.
Yeah. I find that in the band Killswitch Engage, Adam D, he does like everything. I kind of find that like I think I'd struggle. Like I don't think I could do it. Like I wrote the song, and now I'm recording everybody. And obviously, band, you got everyone's, opinions to balance. And you're also really invested in trying to make, I don't know, like he's obviously a professional, has written incredible music and made great albums and recorded and mixed and mastered them. But it's like, I don't know, I find that really hard to do. I don't think obviously not just because of the skill level, but I think to swap your hats over, I think I'd find that real hard. Like, all right, I'm playing the music now and being creative. And then now I've got to be like, ooh, that guitar needs a bit of EQ. And then like all the drums, I don't know. I'd find that quite hard.
Well, I think if it was something that you were really, really good and really professional at, and had all the required experience and all that, you'd built up the capacity to do it over time, then great. I don't, and I haven't. So
yeah, neither. I've recorded a little bit, but like I'd find that quite hard. I think I'd struggle just changing the hats. I just don't think I could do it. Some people, obviously a lot of people do it and they're really good at it, so kudos to them. Save a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just keeping on the one hat that I have. Thanks. I'll find someone else wearing the hat that I want and give the song to them.
No, fair enough. I guess yeah, and how long we've been going for, but I do a little bit of quickfire questions
Yeah,
if you're keen. And
let's
by
do it.
quickfire, they're sort of like just whatever I come up with on the spot. See how we go.
Go for it.
Um, guitar of choice, guitar brand of choice.
Guitar brand of choice. I don't have a brand. I don't give a shit about brands of any kind particularly. I do have an incredibly soft spot for the guitar, which is still to this day my go-to. It's a Ibanez Blazer BL50 that I've changed the pickups out of. So it's got these tone rider ones in it right now. So philosophically, it's maple fretboard and has a coil split, low output PAF humbuckers because it basically means you have to drive the amp to get anything out of it. So you push the amp hard. Sounds good. Anything along that would be great, but I'm not overly fussed about guitar brands and shit. Anything I pick up I like, I'd be happy to play.
Here's a nerdy guitar one. Bolt on or neck through.
Again, same applies. I don't give a shit.
Some people really care.
I know. I just feel like that's obsessing about completely the wrong thing. Like, what if it feels good? Fucking play it. Write some music.
Yeah. I really like both as well. But some people have they get very, very finicky about things like that. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, like literally, I don't care. Like, generally speaking, the guitar, I haven't ever found Gibsons as nice or comfortable to play as, like, I don't know, say Fenders or anything else that have sort of faster necks. But I also, in saying that, have got my sort of backup guitar right now is an Epiphone Les Paul Jr. with a humbucker, and it's like a $300 guitar. It goes hard, bro. I love it.
That's awesome. I had it off my tongue. Tip my tongue. What is it? Digital or analog?
Good question. I say this having replaced my entire analog pedals with a sort of all-in-one digital solution, a Boss GX100, simply because it's less faff.
Yeah, for live. Having a pedal board live. So many things can go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if this thing bricks it or it decides that the software decides to freeze, you've fucked anyway. But generally speaking, I've replaced all my pedals with that sort of thing, and I found it really convenient and really, really good to use live. I do still have I use it like it's an analog setup though. I don't like the idea of option paralysis, and when you get stuck into digital stuff with modeling and things, like however good they sound, often I feel as though it's actually an impediment to getting writing, to getting playing. So if someone was like, I want you to write a bunch of songs, get into a studio and write them with your friend James, I'd be like, cool, give me an amp to plug into, a bass amp, and I don't know, a distortion pedal and a couple of other effects pedals. That would be great. That's it. That's all I'd need. And if you gave me like too much stuff, it would actually be an impediment to getting stuff in the way. So philosophically, the digital stuff is really convenient and really useful, but I use it as if it's analog anyway for the sake of convenience.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Favorite effect? Guitar effect. We'll say guitar. We'll keep it guitar.
Favorite guitar effect? Ooh. For whatever reason, I've always used a chorus and delay combo with.
Yeah, I love that too.
With a wah.
Cool.
The wah, that says a lot about me, bro, but I can't get the wah working properly in combination with everything else on the GX100 at the moment. Because you can't do the thing where you when you stamp on a wire and it sort of turns it off and on. I can't get it to do that. I don't know if it actually has that functionality, which makes it a real pain in the ass. I don't have to tap on a foot switch to turn the wire on, fiddle with the wire with my foot on it, and then turn the switch off somewhere else to actually have to deactivate it. So I've never actually managed to do that.
Oh, more faff.
Yeah, more faff. Less. I'm a less faff kind of a guy. So, I would definitely go with chorus and delay, and I've just added a phaser, which almost sounds a bit wiry because it's got a big sort of a sweep on it. Yeah, those.
Favorite band growing up?
Favorite band growing up was probably Incubus.
Favorite band now?
Favorite band now? Oh, God.
Or artist, not just band, just say artists you're listening to now that you really like.
Artists I'm listening to now, like...
Doesn't have to be recent, to be whoever.
No, I could probably say, just literally right now, I'd never heard of Phoebe Bridgers until recently.
Oh, I've heard the name, don't know much about the music.
I guess she probably falls into indie, folk, rock thing. Right, and I wouldn't say favorite, but I found some of her songs really interesting and really cool to listen to, although I listened to some of her albums and they're just like wall-to-wall depressing. So I don't think I could listen to it for an extended period of time, but and really, really good writer. And really good understanding of melody. Depressing songs, and I can't listen to one or two more than one or two at a time though.
Favorite drink to have while gigging?
Water,
Just
water, warm, preferably.
Warm, of course, yeah. Warm water. Tea? No, not a tea guy.
No, the tea kind of gets a little bit, scratchy in your throat sometimes. Sticking with warm water.
Warm water.
Mm.
All right, sounds good. Okay. An underrated venue in New Zealand.
Underrated venue in New Zealand. How many are there?
There's a couple.
Which one of the four?
Doesn't have to just be Auckland. It can just be from wherever you've played or you've been to, seen bands or artists, or you've played yourself, and that you think that's just a great venue.
I think a great venue's Dead Witch at Ding Dong Lounge. I really love that place. I really enjoy playing at places that pack out easily because they're a lot more fun to play with. Because you have sort of a real cool vibe and you can pack them out with people. And yeah, that place, even if you get 20 or 30 people in there, it starts to feel like it's got a bit of a buzz. It's cool.
Cool. And I guess we'll go just with a generic one. Mac or PC?
Mac. 100 times, a million times Mac.
Why?
I've used them since probably I was 18 or 19, and they just work. Also, they don't brick it anywhere near as frequently as PCs do, and they last a hell of a lot longer. I had one that literally, I reckon the one that I bought in 2007 or 2008, I upgraded the hard drive in it, so it was to a solid state drive, and I think I upgraded the RAM as far as I could, which gave me a stonking 3 gigabytes, I think. Oof. But I only stopped using that maybe 5 years ago. Like, it literally lasted me 10 years, and it was like one of those white plastic ones.
Oh, damn.
But it just still worked. It still did everything I needed to do. Like, Logic started to fart out on it a bit because the plugin started sucking a lot more CPU and GPU than it could possibly offer. But yeah, they just work, and and I absolutely despise large corporate tech entities. Apple is no exception, but the way that they do design does work for people who like to create and to make stuff.
This is true. I would agree, because your Microsoft is like your work computer, like Office.
Yeah.
More, I guess. I don't know. How would you say systems applications rather than create? It's got creative products, but Apple does have that down.
Yeah, I just find them so much easier to use, and if it's been designed to be as unobtrusive as possible, to be like, here is a thing, I want to click on a button and for it to work. And the voice notes thing on as like a song recording tool for demos is absolutely fantastic for that exact reason. You press go and it auto levels stuff, so it figures what the incoming decibel level is and starts to like adjust things. And if it's too low, it pushes it up. If it's too loud, it pulls it down. And if you're doing demo recording, it's fantastic because it sort of auto levels everything. You don't end up with massive spikes and distortion. You just have like the idea based on wherever you've plonked the phone in the room. And I think that seems indicative of the way that they design stuff for it to just work out of the box and to be as unobtrusive as possible, so that you, the person who is doing the creative stuff, just gets to do the stuff and doesn't have to fuck around with endless software issues or updating things or whatever. Once it's on, it works.
Logic can be a fuck around, but I do love Logic. But
well, I
have moments.
Do you? I find it works really well for me.
Oh, I've used it for over 10 years, but
yeah.
I have found it sometimes like, but comparatively to I have experience like Cubase, Pro Tools and stuff. Pro Tools is bullshit. In my opinion, I think it's vastly overrated. But like Cubase is quite good, and then I've had Reason and then FL Studio back in the day. I had a fiddle with that, but Logic I find the most like best of everything of all worlds, So, or Ableton as well. Use that. I found that really hard to use. Maybe this is not familiar with it, but I found that quite difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, Logic. Oh, yeah, cool. Sweet, man. Anything else you want to kind of promote or you want to shout out? Got some gigs coming. So you got a gig coming up at Dead Witch in a few weeks?
On September the 9th. We're playing with Altia and Channel. I think Altia are celebrating the release of their new single, the name of which escapes me. But yeah, they've invited us to play, and it'll be our first gig with our mate Phil, who's going to be playing bass and probably other guitars for us live.
How's that gonna work? Because you guys are you guys both gonna be having octave pedals? Like,
No, I think I'm for this next gig at least. I'm just jettisoning the octave stuff
oh yeah,
altogether. So, gives me a little bit more freedom to be a lunatic on stage, which is always fun.
hell yeah.
Also means I have to plug into one less thing, which is nice too.
Less stuff to bring.
Less stuff to Well,
Yeah.
I always just borrow. I'm a bit of a
Oh,
bit of a
are you that guy?
I'm
Like,
that
oh,
guy. I'm just like, hey, bro,
hey,
have
bro,
you got
it's a nice amp.
anyone in your band got like an amp or something? Because yeah,
Oh, you're one of those guys.
don't want me to use it. Fuck you or DI then.
We found him, guys.
Yeah, I'm definitely that guy. Guilty as
Did you
charged.
take the guitar as well?
Pardon?
Did you take their guitar as well?
Which guitar? Oh no, well, because my guitar is the.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
is
Or their
just
pedals.
my
I had a
guitar.
guy at a gig ask for me for my amp, and then my guitar, and then my pedals.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Why did you come? What did you bring?
Yeah. I was like, I can't believe what I'm fucking hearing. But amp's one thing, but
Yeah, everything.
tuning pedal, bro. Yeah, I like that. Oh, guitar's nice.
Can I take this home with me?
Yeah, I'm just like, fuck, man. I'm gonna drive you home with my stuff as well. God. Oh, sweet. Cocaine Eye is releasing
26th of September.
26th September. Look
Yeah,
out for that.
we'll
Got a
be
video for it too.
filming that on the 16th of September.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that's going to be fun. And yeah, that'll be out soon. So if you see the pre-save for it in the meantime, please do pre-save it so we can get the algorithm working and we can spread our music to, I don't know, half a dozen more people than currently listen to it.
Yeah. It's like, let's get on that algorithm. Ah, fuck.
Yeah.
Algorithm.
We're really stoked with it, eh? We think it's a really good song and we've put our heart and soul into it. I hope people enjoy it.
Oh, I'm sure they will, bro. Awesome, man. Oh, thanks for coming on, and we'll call it there. Sweet
Cheers.
as.
Thanks,
Cheers.
dude.
See you. Bye.